It's a monster that is named Bigfoot.
Really? Once upon a time, there lived a king who wanted to have a big party. He invited many people. But there was one problem. The king did not have a table that was big enough for all his guests. What do you think he needs to do?
Get a lot of table. Get a bigger table. How you spell it? Be a table.
The king had to measure the size of a table. He walked across the room using his foot to measure. Then the king made a drawing of the table and gave it to the carpenter. "Build me a table that is 20 feet long and 10 feet wide," said the king. Does everybody see his footprints? He's walking out the size of the table.
How deep do you measure that thing?
Guess we'll find out. The carpenter looked at the king's drawing. He wasn't sure whose foot to use to measure. "I'll measure it using my neat little foot," thought the carpenter. The carpenter made the table and brought it to the king. But the table was too small. The king was very angry. That's a lot smaller than he expected, right?
Really?
All his guests can't fit in that.
He has little feet, that's why.
The carpenter didn't understand. Why was the table too small? "I used my own foot for measuring," the carpenter said. "My foot is the one to use," said the king. "Now make a ruler that is the same size as my foot. Use it to measure."
Dang, that would be big. Yeah. Yep.
That'd be a big ruler, wouldn't it?
You don't have to use a little roller to make that thing that goes up and stays.
The carpenter did what the king said. Then he built another table and took it to the king. This table was bigger and better.
It goes all the way out the door.
It's gold, right? He's having a lot of people at this party. The king was happy and the carpenter was happy. Everyone at the party was happy. The next day, the king decided that everyone would measure using the king's foot. Everyone got a ruler, and they all measured happily ever after.
How big was his foot?
I don't know. It looked really big. It looked longer than a foot, didn't it?
Yeah.
Maybe his foot was so big, his foot was big.
That was maybe his shoe was
So, now we need to think about this. Why was the table not the correct size when the carpenter made it? Oh,
because it was tiny.
because his foot was tiny?
No.
Why was the table tiny? That's what we need to know. Why was it the wrong size? All right.
Because he measured his foot to do the table.
Okay, so when the king gave him the measurements, it was like, what, 12 feet by 10 feet
20.
or something? Okay, so whatever the measurements were, he was using his own foot, right? So how did the king's foot become the standard unit of measurement? How did he do that? Does anybody remember the last page? What do you do, Hope?
I forgot. I got it. They think that everybody took a ruler and used it.
Exactly. So he made his own ruler so everyone would use it, right? You see him right here in the picture. He's declaring that everyone's going to use his foot to measure from now on. So what if the carpenter's foot had been longer than the king's foot? What would have happened? Mariah?
The table would have been longer.
It would have been so much longer, wouldn't it? It would have been way too big for the
What if it
room.
went out the door and it was all the way over there and then the door?
Yeah, it would have been huge, right?
And then it busted the door and it went out.
Yeah. Well, I